I need to say no to more stuff more often. I need to dial that in to the 2 or 3 really key things that are either most importantly aligned with my skill set and my passion and that I can do, and then what can move the business forward. And I think a lot of times, think about saying no to certain meetings. Think about saying no to certain tasks. Think about saying no to really anything that doesn't fall in your 2 or 3 areas of kind of circle of genius or competence. It's not rude. I think sometimes we just feel like, oh man, I should accept that coffee with that person, or we should have that quote unquote brain picking meeting. But unless that person aligns with what you're doing, they can add value to you and vice versa. Maybe don't do that. Welcome to Raising the Flipping Bar, the go-to podcast for aspiring and seasoned real estate investors. I'm your host, Derek Marlin, and I'm the CEO of Elevation. We're a real estate investment company based right here in Denver, Colorado. We'll dive into smart investment strategies, market insights, and essential tips for scaling your real estate ventures. Whether you're making your first investment or your 100th investment, this podcast is your blueprint for success in the ever-evolving world of real estate investing. Get ready to elevate your real estate game and begin your journey with me. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Raising the Flipping Bar. I'm your host, Derek Marlin, and this episode is coming out right around the holiday season, so we're going to make this a little bit of a quick cast. I know everybody's super busy. Hopefully bear with me. I've got a little bit of Barry White voice. I'm getting over a cold, so hopefully this isn't too terrible to listen to. But in our mission to not only educate people in real estate investing and overall real estate industry in general, we want to talk about personal development and we want to talk about business strategy. So a couple weeks ago, we had a great episode on goal setting. So I would also highly recommend you go back and listen to that one first. Not to say that it's a 2-part series, but they do go really, really well and they go hand in hand. So let's jump into today's episode. So for today's episode, this is really timely for me because I just had my monthly meeting with my business strategist. Shout out to Doug Slaybaugh, and the CPA Coach is the name of his company. And he and I have been working together for 5 or 6 years. And he is great. I think some people would call him a coach. I'm kind of like the term business consultant. And so what we did is I was feeling a little bit stressed out and a little bit stretched thin, and we really audited my time. And I went through and did an exercise and really realized that I was working on about 14 or 15 different things. And obviously, newsflash, that's way too much. You can have administrative tasks and you can have little things that you're completing, but as far as big picture projects, ways to move the business forward, you really need to narrow down to the top 2 or 3 areas. And so for me, that's what I'm focusing on in today's episode. And I want to give you just a couple of really, really tactical tips on how to refine where you're focusing your time and hopefully use that as a way to move your business forward. I've done this before, and it really came to mind because at different seasons of the business or different stages of the business, you need to reevaluate this. Like, I know this. I have an MBA. I've read a ton of different books. I'm trying to become a better leader every time that I interact with my team, but there's definitely times you just slip into getting that frantic amount of work done because you just feel like you need to quote unquote grind, as people say. But to me, that's working really, really hard, but maybe not working smart. I need to obviously take some of my own medicine as well. So what I'm doing is I'm translating this to my leadership team at Elevation, to the Broadway Collective, and then I'm hopefully giving them the tools to then translate that to our real estate agents, to our partners, to our other investors, and to our vendors. So it should be really just a trickle down, hopefully, again, tool for business success. So let's jump into a couple different things that I think should be really tactical for you to take away. And one is called the more, better, new technique. And I did some research. The other thing is we just recorded a couple of episodes on the use of AI to help drive your business, especially as it relates to real estate. And so I used some AI tools, I obviously used searching, and conceptually, let's define what this concept is, and then I'll talk a little bit about where it came from. So the more is just doing more of something that actually works. As an investor and as an entrepreneur, I suffer from shiny object theory or shiny object syndrome where I can get taken off track. I feel like that's why I've paid Doug a nice chunk of change to help keep me on track and keep me focused and keep me grounded. But it's really thinking about how much more of that thing that works can I keep doing and double down and triple down and quadruple down, if you will. Then once you've mastered the more part, you can say, okay, how can I go back and how can I do the thing better? You guys know I'm a big fan of Alex Hormozi's content. He always talks about you doing your thing more efficiently. So I'll give you a little bit of a framework to look at this through. before we get to the last part, which is the new. Once you've done a ton more of the thing that works, you've then gone back and you refine it to make that thing hopefully as great or quote unquote better as possible. Then you can even have the bandwidth to think about, should I start something new? And that new thing could be either a new business, it could be a new division, it could be a new product or service. And so I wanted to put this into context. For us, one of the biggest things we're focusing on in 2025 is lead gen. I know everybody talks about that's the lifeblood of your business, and I 100% agree with that. And so for us, we are doubling and tripling down on cold calling. And also a shout out to Cole. He helps us with our cold calling. And he preaches this concept as well. And so to me, it's all about, can I double the number of cold callers? Can I triple? Can I quadruple? And really trying to narrow in on that return on ad spend, or ROAS, as people say, instead of doing some direct mail, then doing TV, then doing radio, then doing digital ads. Like, yes, those all might work, but you're kind of cutting where your lead gen is coming from. If it's working, if you're getting a good return on your investment, let's just do more cold calling. Then once we feel like we've got the more cold calling dialed in, then I'm going to go back with either my team or a cold calling company's team and make sure that they're doing a better job with those calls. How can they ask more poignant questions? How can we get to a person who's actually a motivated seller rather than just a tire kicker? How can we really get to a 7-figure income stream by doing more and then doing everything better? And then once you feel like that's totally maxed out and totally done, say that there's never room for improvement, then you can think about the new. And so in this simple example, the new would be like, okay, then let's maybe layer on direct mail, or then let's pay for SEO, or let's pay for digital advertising. So to me, I'm really trying to use that as a tactical way to go about our business. You could even go higher up the food chain, and the new could be, oh, well, let's start a new division. Let's flip in Colorado Springs. Let's start a construction or inspection division within Elevation. These are all things that I've thought about, but we got to get way better at the more, then the better. And the funny thing is, we wrap up the more, better, new philosophy. As I went and I researched it, and it's actually tied back to Peter Drucker, who was essentially one of the godfathers of business productivity, of operations, and of systems management. And he wrote a book, and I'm going to make sure I don't screw this thing up. It's called Entrepreneurship, Practices and Principles. The funny thing is he wrote that in 1985. So everybody always thinks about, we talked about AI, we talked about technology, we talked about things moving so far forward so fast. And this guy wrote about this in the 80s. So there are certain things where you can, again, lean into doing more of things, doing them better, and then doing them new. But everything doesn't have to be the newest, flashiest thing. So again, shout out to Peter Drucker and his research. I haven't read that book, so that's now definitely on my list. I'm curious to see where that stemmed from and dive a little bit deeper into that space. But now let's talk about another strategy. And this one is from Dan Martell. And again, he wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time. For those of you that have been listening to us for a while, I've read this book now 3 times. I try to implement things as much as possible instead of just consume all this additional knowledge. Again, more of the same thing. So doing things more and more and more. Dealing with hard money lenders is the biggest headache real estate investors have. I thought that's just how hard money had to be until I met Backflip. Backflip is changing the lending game by actually making loans stress-free. And I know this firsthand because I personally use them for my own deals. Let me tell you, their free app makes real estate investing effortless. With just a few taps, I can apply for loans tailored exactly to my needs, whether it's low interest rates, high leverage, or even deferred payments. The best part, I can secure financing in less than 2 weeks, making it easier to scale my business and close more profitable deals. But it doesn't stop there. Backflip instantly provides all the data I need to estimate profits, including a curated list of high-quality comps, saving me hours of work. Unlike other lenders who disappear after funding, Backflip is a true partner for Elevation. Their team is always just a call away and ready to answer any questions and offer support. With Backflip, you get the data and the cash you need to jump on good investments quickly and with confidence. Click the link in the show notes to download the free app. Now let's get back to the show. So the second tool for success, or the second top philosophy, brought on by Dan Martell. He's a great entrepreneur and wrote a phenomenal book called Buy Back Your Time. And I think this is perfect as we start into the new year. People are doing goal setting. You're trying to figure out how are you more effective for time management. We talked about the more, better, new. And I think this is the perfect kind of complementary tool for you to think about. And he calls it the 1-3-1. And it's, for those of you reading at home, it's on page 155. And what he says is you need to define one major problem. And then whether it's a problem or an issue or some challenge to be solved. Once you define that, what are the three viable options or three viable solutions that you can do to help tackle that problem? And then once you have that, it's let's make the best recommendation and choose one thing and let's run 100 miles an hour forward. I think, especially in real estate investing, we can be scattered in so many different avenues and we can try to solve so many problems at once. But if you think about it, you should prioritize and you should do the 1-3-1. We're actually at Elevation going to narrow it to the 1-2-1 because we're not curing cancer or we're not trying to invent the next great AI tool or whatever. So we're going to go the 1-2-1. And I feel like if we can focus on one problem, give me two great solutions, and then let's think of the best path forward, I think it's going to help us not only be efficient with our time, but it's going to make a much more efficient translation to our team. And so it's something that I'm working with where all of the leaders at Elevation are going to now, and they've known about this for a while, but we're really going to lean into it in 2025, is they're going to focus on, okay, let's tackle one problem at a time. Let's have them completely work out all the logistics of the two solutions. And then it's, hey, I think, Derek, this is the best recommendation, yay or nay. And then that gives me so much more bandwidth to sit back and think of, yeah, let's move forward, or let's do it in this different manner or whatever else. But if we all just sit around and quote unquote pick each other's brains or ask if we've got 5 minutes to chat or whatever, that turns into an hour-long conversation. We don't really get stuff solved. And I feel like we get a little off track. So if your leadership team can do that, then how can we translate that down to our agent team? Or for those of you out there running businesses, again, it's your multiple levels of employees. If everybody kind of buttons things up, really what Dan Martell actually says is that a lot of people will actually solve their own problems. So I think that's cool. And they can almost come to you after the fact and say, hey, just by the way, we saw this thing come up. And I came up with a couple solutions. I decided to do this. Give your staff the bandwidth to make those decisions on their own. And I think that they'll actually solve their own problems. So the 1-3-1, or again, we're going to do the 1-2-1. And I think it's going to really streamline things for our business. So our third tip, I know you guys always think that it's going to be a flip tip, but this one is more of like a business strategy and business success tip. And this one seems super, super simple, but I'm really not very good at it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are not good at it. I think if you also think through the lens of how we run our business through that book Traction, where you've got a visionary and you've got an integrator, so the CEO and COO. Visionaries are typically big picture thinkers. They're trying to accomplish as much as humanly possible. Well, what that does is you say yes to everything. So it sounds weird, but one of my goals in 2025 is to say no more often. If you think about the beginning of this episode, when I work with my business consultant, Doug, I had 14 things going on. I need to say no to more stuff more often. I need to dial that in to the 2 or 3 really key things that are either most importantly aligned with my skill set and my passion and that I can do, and then what can move the business forward. And I think a lot of times, think about saying no to certain meetings. Think about saying no to certain tasks. Think about saying no to really anything that doesn't fall in your 2 or 3 areas of kind of circle of genius or competence. And just say no. It's not rude. I think sometimes we just feel like, oh man, I should accept that coffee with that person, or we should have that quote unquote brain picking meeting. But unless that person aligns with what you're doing, they can add value to you and vice versa. Maybe don't do that. The other thing is thinking of it as it's being hard, but it's being busy versus being productive. I think a lot of times people just feel like we load our calendars, we're running from meeting to meeting. I know my staff would probably laugh at this. I'm trying to be better about being on time, and that's because I'm overbooking myself. So it's all about being productive versus just being very busy. And again, maybe there's some hurt feelings. I don't know. It's just something that I think we're going to have to deal with. And for me, it's also thinking about the short-term success and versus the long-term profitability. And so something that I was thinking about is trying to wrap myself or my brain around a story of like, how do I illustrate this? And we were just in the, let's call it the second growth phase of the company. So I'd gone from just doing everything myself, flipping myself, managing the projects, doing deal sourcing, acquisitions. I did have a great real estate agent. I wasn't licensed at the time, and they sold stuff, but for the main part, I did everything. We then jumped up to adding a real estate agent who did both acquisitions and dispositions and also project management. And I thought, okay, you know what? We're ready. I should definitely flip in Vegas. And the way that came down was I had a business associate that I had known for a while. He had been investing for a long time in Denver, and he had moved out to Las Vegas and said, man, there's a great opportunity out here. He had an alignment with one of his property managers because he had a successful property management business as well. And that person supposedly had an inn at the city of North Las Vegas to have us get essentially a head start on deal acquisitions. And I already had the system, and I thought, you know what, this is really good. I should say yes. It could be a whole new division. I think part of it was probably my pride and my ego to be able to be at your cocktail party or at a Broncos game and be like, oh yeah, we've got a division that flips in Vegas now. Like, it sounds sexy, but you know what should be sexy is the efficient use of your time and your profitability. That should be the sexy part of your business. And so I spent probably 6 months. Little side note, I do like Las Vegas. I like to play cards. I like to sports bet. So maybe that was a little thing that kind of got me, shiny object, off the beaten path. But I should have said no. I should have said, or at least maybe not right now. It wasn't the right time. It took me off track. It took me away from my family. Even though they were quick trips, I probably went out there 4 times. Luckily, things didn't materialize. And I say that because I think it would not have been the right time. So it's all about saying no, again, not to situations that might not be lucrative, but what is it going to do to move your business forward right now? Do you have the time? More importantly, do you have the staff to handle that bandwidth? And so that was just a story that popped into my brain as we're recording today's episode of like stuff that I should have said no to. And so to me, it's something that I really want to hone in on, of giving you guys the tools for success, giving you these 3 or 4 different philosophies. Again, it's all about, we are practicing what we preach. I know there's a lot of quote unquote gurus out there and they're teaching stuff, and it's either stuff from a dated business strategy, a dated market, or 10 years ago or whatever. This is stuff that I'm trying to use right now in our business. So I know this has been a quicker episode. Hopefully you guys have taken some key points away from this episode. As always, I would love to have you share not only your thoughts on this episode, but what are some cool tactics and strategies that you're using in your real estate business, or being an entrepreneur, or being a solopreneur, that help move your business forward? Please engage with us. Please send us DMs, call us, stop by the Broadway Collective, whatever. We just want to engage with you guys. So I hope as you're getting into 2025, this helps you from a goal setting perspective. Again, reach out to us. We'd love to do business with you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Raising the Flipping Bar. If you found value in our insights and stories, let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on social media, and be sure to share this episode with friends or colleagues who might benefit. Your feedback and reviews help us grow and reach more listeners like you. So please, if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. Thanks again to the Elevation Academy for sponsoring today's show. If you're interested in learning more, click the link in the show notes below. And remember, every property tells a story, every deal brings a lesson. Keep reaching for those goals, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening and watching Raising a Flipping Bar. Just a basic overall disclaimer is that A, this is not legal advice. B, this is not tax advice. C, this is not financial advice. I hope you get the gist, but I'm obviously not a lawyer, not a CPA. Hell, I'm not even a real estate agent, actually. But in general, we hope you get a ton of value out of this, but there is a bit of a disclaimer. Please consult a professional if you have any questions whatsoever. Thanks.